Hello, my name is Wayne Hoy. I'm a solution manager. You know, one of the common misconceptions about Visier is that we don't let you take data out, that we lock you into our platform and try to keep you there. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. There's actually a lot of different ways to get data out of Visier and into a different tool. And in this video, which is the first of a series of videos within our technical tutorial series, we're going to show you all the different ways that you can get data out of Visier people and into some other tool, whether it is a data science, AI, machine learning tool, a different visualization tool, whatever. In this particular video, we're going to look at probably the most straightforward way to get data out, and that is through the data export room. We'll talk about the difference between aggregated and detailed data exports. We'll close the loop by pulling that data into Excel through the data export room. And finally, we'll end with a topic called managed data exports, which is how administrators can control the data exports available to their end users so that they can self-serve. So let's get started. Okay, here we are in Visier people again. I'm playing the role of an advanced user, an advanced end user, like a power user or a data scientist, who's been given enough security privileges to use the data export room to pull data out. We're going to navigate down to the data exports room. And here we'll see a list of all of the data exports I've created or have been shared with me. I don't have any yet, so we're going to create our first one by clicking the New button. We're taken to an Explore Room-like interface where we will build a data table, essentially, where we will control the content and the shape of the data that the export will provide to the third-party tool. We're going to do an aggregated data export first. Aggregated data exports show metric values, right? So I can add metrics like headcount, exit rates, diversity ratio, compensation ratios, those sorts of things. And these are really great because you will still benefit from the standardization that Visier's data model provides, right? So wherever this data ends up going and what they end up doing with it, when you see a headcount or when you see an exit rate, you can be assured that that calculation is still the same as what Visier people and users would see as well. So you get that standardization benefit. Let's go ahead and modify it in the same way that we would modify a data table, and we can add a bunch of metrics. So we have headcount here. Let's take a look at resignation rates. Let's go ahead and add that. Let us also add perhaps a gender diversity ratio. So and while we're at it, let's also add a compensation style metric. So maybe something like comp ratio. We're already showing a number of months of data, about 12 months worth of data. If I wanted to add some groupings and dimensionality to that, I can do that as well. So let's go ahead and group this by business unit. I can give this data export a name. So, and if I wanted, I can also give a description, which I won't because I can't think of anything to write. And when I'm ready, I'm going to save and close. Now, let's create another export. And this time we will use a detailed data export. Detailed data exports are different from aggregated exports because instead of metric values, we're actually going to look at the underlying data itself. And in most cases, this is going to be employee records. What we can do with this is we can select the columns that we want to show for each employee through a convenient prepackaged set of attribute sets. So I can look at basic demographics, compensation, maybe some diversity things, and I can always create my own as well. Let's take a look at some diversity columns here, and we will give this a name. And we'll go ahead and save that as well. Now, when we're ready to consume this data export, when I'm ready to use my data export, what I need to do is just hover over the export that I've created, copy the link. That link has now been copied to the clipboard, and I can paste that into my third-party tool, establish the connection, and pull down the data. So let's take a look at how that looks now. All right, so here we are in Microsoft Excel. Let's connect to the data export that we just created, pull some data down, and see how that looks. We'll open up the Power Query item from web and paste in the URL that we just copied out of Visier people. We're going to have to authenticate, so let's log in with our Visier people username and password. We hit the connect button. It's establishing the connection, we're previewing the data, and we can probably make some adjustments here, but let's just click load and see how that goes. So now Excel is connecting to the endpoint that we just created in the data export room. And in particular, it's the aggregated data export that we created with about 4 metrics, some time periods, as well as the groupings by organizational unit. And here we go. The data export is complete. The data is pulled down. It's using the metric definitions from Visier people. So I'm looking at the same numbers calculated the same way that end users in Visier people would. And I can do whatever it is I need to do with it. Maybe I want to make a different kind of visualization. Maybe I need to do some subsequent analysis on it as well. Whatever my use case is, I can do that now in the tool of my choice, having pulled the data out of Visier people. So what we've seen up until now is how end users can essentially self-serve data exports. They can create them themselves, share them amongst themselves, and ultimately consume them in their third-party tool. As an administrator, you might want to push out some standard data exports to your user community, and we can do that through the Managed Data Export feature. I'm here in Studio. I've created a new project in the usual way that you've seen before in the Customizing Visier series. We'll go to the Model item and the Data Exports item underneath that. And we can create a new data export by pressing the button. Let's give it a name. And then this will take me to the same kind of data export builder that we've seen before. I can create a detailed export or an aggregated export. If it's an aggregated export, I can add metrics that I want to include. So this time, let's do resignation rate. And when I'm happy with the shape and the contents of this data export, I can save and close. That would add it to the list. I can add more to this project. And when I'm ready, I can publish this project out to my user community in the usual way. And so that brings us to the end of this video on data exports. There are lots of other ways to get data out of Visier people and into a tool of your choice, so make sure you check out those other videos in this series. Thank you very much and see you next time.